All right, you're live and sounding great. Great. All right, welcome. So we're so happy that we have people in the room. We also have live streamers today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. Dr. Bean and I just drove up from Santa Cruz this morning, and we're in a new place, Conviction Martial Arts and Fitness, and we just haven't had a chance to. There's some grappling going on here. So we thought we were going to project on the screen, but we can't find the remote. So we are flexible, just like life. So we're super excited to talk to you about the endocannabinoid system. I mean, this is news. Most of us out there do not even know that we have this system. You know that you have a nervous system. You know that you have a lymphatic system, a digestive system. It was only discovered in the 80s. So what Dr. Bean's going to go through today, and I'll chime in when I can, is what is this system? What is it doing? What is it supposed to do? Why isn't it working? And what can we do about it? So I'm Lita Gisela. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist. We have a practice in Santa Cruz. I've been teaching the business classes at the Chinese Medical School for the last 10 years. And being a practitioner, being in the health field, you know, I've noticed that people, they're having more issues. Our kids have ADD, they're having seizures, they're having autism, they're having insomnia, anxiety. This is not okay. And then, of course, my older population with the more MS and more Parkinson's, more ALS, more cancer, a lot of cancer. It's becoming way too common. So we're stepping back. What is the missing link? And I believe with every cell in my body that the endocannabinoid system is a huge missing link. So if you're on this call, if you're in this room, you are one of the first people to know about this system and how you can start to feel better physically in all levels. So Dr. Bean, you want to share with us your knowledge?
Let's go for it.
All right.
I think that's why we're here. So welcome everyone. I'm glad that you're here. And hi to our Zoomers out there. So I'm going to try, I guess, remind me if I'm not speaking loud enough, because I know sometimes the mic on the computer doesn't pick it up. So CBD, CBD is what's on people's mind right now. You know, people are talking about it, and it's really fascinating that every time we do this talk, it seems like more and more people are saying, yes, I want to know about it. Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah, it helped my mom. Yeah, it helped my, cousin and my kids. And we're trying to figure out why. Like, why is this happening? And why don't we know enough about it? So I'm going to briefly tell you why I got into CBD, and it was not by accident. I think that. So for me, it was about 2 years ago. My dear sweet mother went into surgery, and she had her neck fused. And what happened was, a year later, she had the rest of her spine fused. And it was pretty traumatic. It was pretty traumatic for me as a chiropractor, understanding what that's going to do to her spine. But two, going into surgery, the surgeons told us that when she comes out of surgery, that they were afraid that they weren't going to be able to control her pain. So 20 years chronic pain, this is becoming more and more common. And I'm hearing more and more, actually being in the chiropractic profession, we tend to hear a lot of that, pain after, medication and other medications. And so my mom went into surgery. She was on about 11 different medications, and she was actually maxed out and taking more than she should be, really. And so she came off of surgery, and that fear became a reality for her. So she spent 3 days in ICU. And the main point of ICU is really to control pain. And most people who go through a surgery like that extensive, they spend about 24 hours. So she was just really on the maxed end of that. So, and I knew this was coming because they told us. So for me, I was like, Western medicine has done everything that they possibly can for her. And I needed to step in and try and find something else. And just like a lot of people listening to these talks nowadays and Google searching and seeing like, how can I help either myself or somebody that I dearly, dearly care about? CBD is on the mind. Cannabis is on the mind. THC, like, we're starting to really understand it. And across the entire world right now, people are researching it. It is in all of the research labs. It is in every country. Well, first world countries anyways. But hopefully going to continue to spread and go global. So what happened is I brought my mom home, and she was 1 week in the hospital. I brought her home, and I started administering different THC and CBD tinctures, not knowing what I was doing because I'd never done this before. I really didn't understand anything about marijuana, anything about cannabis. I just knew that it was an alternative solution, and I had to try something. So within about 2 days, her pain went from a 10 to a 6. And my mom hadn't been on a pain scale of 6 for at least, 5 or 6 or 7 years. So that was pretty impressive. By the end of the week, she dropped down to a 0. So she was at a 0. She kind of fluctuated between 0 and 1. And every time she started going up to a 1, we'd give her a little bit more. By the end of 3 weeks, we had dropped 3 of her medications off the shelf. And at the end of 6 weeks, she was with me for 6 weeks. At the end of 6 weeks, we had taken 6 medications off her shelf. She was walking, she was laughing, she was playing. Her eyes were shiny, her skin was shiny, and basically I had my mom back. So it was pretty impressive to me. And in my mind, I was like, what just happened? What just happened? How could this happen? And it's not a miracle. There's definitely a wisdom happening. And so I took it upon myself to start figuring this out. So that's why we're doing this, because I spent a year after that trying to figure out what happened and really diving into the research, because I continue to think about the 20 years that she spent without this wisdom and all of the other people. I remember still clearly in my mind leaving the hospital and walking down the halls and thinking about all these other people that don't have somebody like me advocating for them and will never hear about it. So and I think about them all the time. So here I am doing some research and here to impart a little bit of the education that I have found through a lot of searching for it. So let's get into it. The talk really is about the benefits of CBD. So I want to talk about CBD, but in order to talk about CBD cannabidiol, we need to talk a little bit about what the hemp is it? I always have to say that again. What the hemp is CBD? So there's a lot of different ways to describe these CBD, and I'm kind of trying to look everywhere here because we're talking to a few different people. But, cannabis, that's, we're talking cannabis, we're talking marijuana, we're talking hemp, and everyone has their own little explanation of what that is, ganja, whatever you want to call it. But really what's happened is when I made this PowerPoint, it said 5,000 years, but really in the literature today, it's saying 25,000 plus years at this point right now. What's that?
Don't talk to the slide.
Okay, because then they can't hear me. Okay. I guess I have to look at the slide to know what's on there. Yeah. So 25,000 years is the last documented case, really, in Southeast Asia. And so this plant has been around as long as we have, and literally, like if you read Michael Pollan's The Botany of Desire, beautiful book, and he has written out in a very beautiful way how he feels like we've actually evolved with the plant and maybe possibly for the plant, as opposed to the other way, to really help spread the plant. So it's been in existence for a very, very long time. I mean, today in the hospitals in Israel, in Asia and Europe, they are using cannabis in the hospitals. If you go into the hospital for cannabis, for Parkinson's, for cancer, Alzheimer's, ADD, they're going to give you some form of cannabis along with the other medications that they're taking. So here in America, we've got to figure it out. We have got to figure this out. We've got to catch up to the times. And it is coming around for us. We're really starting to understand it, starting to research it a little bit more here. So cannabinoids, that's the active component of the cannabis plant. Okay, that is what CBD is. CBD is a cannabinoid, so is THC. THC was the first one to be discovered in the 1960s by a professor named Raphael Mechoulam out of Israel, the Hebrew University. And 2 years later, he discovered CBD molecule. And the reason that we talk a lot about CBD and THC is because they're typically found in high ratios in the plant. So when they start studying it, start extracting the active components of it, THC and CBD show up first because they're in high quantities. But over the years, they've discovered over 150 other cannabinoids at this point. So the plant is rich. It is rich in cannabinoids. There's also other components to the plant, but you can see here in this section here, the reason I have this slide up right now is because even though there's all the different cannabinoids that come into play, you can see that they're really studying the CBD one more than anything because of all of the different physiological processes that it's influencing and modulating. So we're going to talk about that. Okay. All right.
I'm interrupting.
Okay. we're live streaming, so I'm just going to continue talking. It's good to see you. So the next question is, through the different studies, the question is, if we have these cannabinoids that our body is using it, how are we using this? How's our body using it? And in the 1980s, what was discovered is receptors. So we literally have receptors in our brain and in our central nervous system that directly bind these cannabinoids. That's a big, big deal. And I want to put this into perspective for you. What are the ones? CB2 cells they also found in the immune system cells. So the immune system cells going through the bloodstream, the immune organs, so the thymus, the bone marrow, the spleen, the tonsils, we have these receptors. And just to put that into perspective, we don't have receptors in our brain for omega-3s or for vitamin K or for vitamin D or for kale for that matter, So, but we have receptors that bind these cannabinoids, and it's a direct and immediate influence on the body. And that's huge. Brain, spinal cord goes all the way down, the spinal nerves that come out to the peripheral parts of the body and innervate the organ systems, receptors. So immediate access to the brain and central nervous system. That's a really, really, really big discovery. With that discovery, they decided to term it that if we have receptors that directly bind the cannabinoids, right? We have the cannabinoids, the receptors, we must have endogenous cannabinoids. So endogenous just means that the body makes it. Endo means body. Endogenous means the body makes these chemicals. So the next question is, do we make chemicals that are functionally similar to the plant cannabinoids? And the answer is yes, we do. The whole endocannabinoid system the point of it is for homeostasis. So through all of the research that's been done over the past, at this point, has it been like 40 years, 50 years? I mean, this is a brand new discovery. 50 years, we're talking 50 years. The goal of the endocannabinoid system is homeostasis. So the idea is quieting down overactive parts of the body that are just creating a lot of chaos in the body, or turning on systems that just aren't on in the body. And the idea is bringing all of these things back into balance. So it's this wide, like body-wide physiological processing that's happening in the body. And we're going to talk about how that's actually happening. So the two different endocannabinoids that have been discovered, this was another major discovery in our system in 1992, again by the same professor, Chulam out of Hebrew University. So we have two cannabinoids that we make on demand in our brains and in our bodies. And the first one is called anandamide. It is Sanskrit for bliss, so they call it the bliss molecule. And it has a strong affinity, so it binds very strongly to those CB1 receptors that I was talking about that are on the brain and central nervous system. So it influences the brain in a very big way. 2-AG down here is the other one that we talk about a lot. This one's considered to be kind of like the motivation molecule. So this is found in breast milk. It's found in all of these endocannabinoids, the endogenous cannabinoids and the receptors are found pretty much throughout the entire animal kingdom, right? Everything except for insects. Is that right, Lita?
Everything with a vertebrae.
Everything with a vertebrae, yeah.
600 million years.
Yeah, huge, huge existence. So the 2-AG, when you block the receptors, so some of the studies that have been shown, when you block the receptors, that suckling mechanism is lost. And so a lot of the studies around, how it's influencing the body, really the thriving, the desire to be alive, and all of the molecules that go along with that, this 2-AG is influencing those in a big way.
So these are the main two endocannabinoids.
These are the main two endocannabinoids that are produced on demand in the body, eliminated quickly so that they can have their physiological influences.
Right. So, my question for the people on the live stream and people in the class, hopefully you can hear me, is that, Ananda means bliss, and the 2-AG is the molecule, the motivation to thrive. So, when you look at your community, you look at your families and friends, are people blissed out, or are they having anxiety and depression? And are they motivated to thrive? That's what's interesting about this system being so deficient with these two main molecules. Really interesting.
Yeah, and Lita brings up a really good point, because the next wave of research is asking, why isn't this functioning? Like, if we have the ability to do all of this work already ourselves, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? So the idea is endocannabinoid deficiency. So those are the main things that they're looking at. And it's coming down to lifestyle, toxicity, depletion in our nutrients, depletion in our food, the soil, pesticides, our glyphosate, I mean, just on and on and on, all of these reasons why we are just bombarded with toxicity. And our endocannabinoid system is just stressed out, it is not working, and it is dormant. It just doesn't work the way it's intended to. So, and Lita always says, it's like, no wonder, you know, so many people are drawn to cannabis, you know, because we need these. We need to enhance our body's own physiology. So let's talk about how it actually works then. I'm going to do one more little thing about how it works, and then we're going to get into some of the studies, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the CBD that I've discovered, or that was dropped into my lap at some point. But anyway, so how does it work? CBD in general. So they used to think that CBD itself directly binds these molecules, these receptors, and just in the last like 6 or 7 years, they've discovered that it doesn't actually bind. It's a weak agonist, and all that means is it doesn't bind. But what they've discovered is it's a modulator. So it's getting into the system, and it's literally modulating thousands and thousands of pathways in the body. So, for instance, so all of our neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, all of our hormones, all of the liver pathways, all of the inflammatory pathways and the anti-inflammatory pathways, it just goes on and on and on of what is actually conducting and modulating. For instance, and if I would have known this 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when I was trying to help my mom come off of all of her medications and really control her pain, because I didn't know what I was doing with all of the tinctures, you know, I ended up giving her too much THC a couple times, and so I sent my mom flying. You know, she was so stoned and so high, and I felt terrible, you know. She's never been like that before. But what I know now, and this is an example of how CBD modulates this. Yeah, Chibi's was high. And she was really funny. She was a funny high. But when you add CBD to this mixture, so because THC has such a high affinity, like it binds so strongly, when you throw CBD into it, it actually plucks it off those receptor sites, and it moves it to the CB2 receptors, so it can still do its medicinal work, but it does it in other parts of the body. So it's going to move more towards the organ systems and the immune system. That's a really big deal that it can do that. So it can kind of lower that hyper psychoactive effect. And that's one way that it does it, but it's doing this on every other molecule in the body. We're going to talk about its protective effects on the liver, the brain, and the immune system. This is the big one right here. This is what's happening. Gene transcription modulation. This is a new discovery. This is where all the research is headed towards right now. And all that means is genes, we have genes in our DNA. So we all know we have cells and we have DNA. And in order for us genes are like a blueprint, right? So the DNA has to unwind, it exposes the genes, there's gene sequences, and a signal comes in and it reads it. So that's the transcription. So we have gene transcription as a signal, reads it, and then the modulation part of this is CBD modulating and determining which genes are going to be read. So to say that simply, literally CBD is coming in and changing the expression of our genes. So it is in a very big way changing all of the signaling that's happening around us and trying to bring it back into balance, because again, the endocannabinoid system is homeostasis, it's balance. So it's coming in. Let me give you an example of that also. So some of the really great studies coming out of Spain, Dr. Christina, I don't remember her last name. The studies show in the treatment of cancer and tumors. So there's a gene. So we have in place, our immune system has things in place that come in and they read, when the genes are exposed, it reads for mutations, right? But because we are in such fight or flight, we're sympathetic driven, just like always stressed out, so much toxicity, our immune systems are shut down right now. So we don't have that signaling to come in and read for the mutations. And instead we're getting signaling for proliferation. So it's reading the gene that says proliferate, and it continues to proliferate. And proliferation just means continued cell growth. And it's just taking over the entire cell. So the cell no longer functions, all it does is grow and grow. That's tumor and that's cancer. CBD comes into the system, it overrides that signaling pattern. So when the genes are exposed, it goes a little bit further up. It's going to override that signaling pattern for proliferation, go a little bit higher, and it's going to read the gene for cellular apoptosis, which just means cellular death, natural cell death. So that cell shuts down, and it does that with all of the tumoral cells around. And it doesn't influence any of the other cells that are behaving the way they're supposed to. That's a really big deal. Changing the expression of the genes, changing the expression of the signaling patterns, and bringing the body back into homeostasis. So it's doing this on so many different levels. Really big deal. gene transcription modulation, and you can look that up. I actually have the study in here, one of the best studies that I've seen that describes it. All right.
Doing good.
That's a lot of information. It's a lot of words, so I'm gonna slow down now. That's always the most exciting part for me, is all the geeky science stuff. So I hope that you guys caught on to that. So I'm gonna go briefly through some of the different pathways in the body and how it's influencing, how CBD is changing, or some of the studies that have been done. But if I'm always telling people in these classes, if there's something in particular that you're interested in, I would say look it up, because I'm not going to spend too much time here. It's going to be nice and quick. But there's so much research out there. There's a lot that we actually know. And I would say PubMed or Google search, or there's a lot of resources where you can find really, really good information. So first one, GI, gastrointestinal and digestion. The work that's being done right now around Crohn's, obesity, diabetes, leaky gut, irritable bowel, huge research article right now on irritable bowel disease because of endocannabinoid deficiency, just because our endocannabinoids aren't functioning. So they're really starting to look at this. We know that CBD is going in and modulating appetite. So we're looking at all the different eating disorders right now. You know, we know that when you have cannabis or marijuana, you get the munchies, right? That's part of it. THC is actually doing that, but CBD is telling it when you need it. My phone. Robin's on the call. She's calling me. Can you check that just to make sure? Right, so a lot of work around gastrointestinal and digestion, right? So Crohn's, obesity, diabetes. You can look up a bunch of those right there. Are we good out there?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Liver, this is a huge one. This is big. So, and there's a lot of studies around the liver and the different liver pathways. What they're showing is that CBD is modulating upregulation of all the antioxidant pathways. You know that the US government right now has a patent on CBD as an antioxidant and as a neuroprotectant. You know, because they understand in a very big way that we are turning on the antioxidant pathway. So if you understand glutathione, you understand, you know, the ability of the liver to detoxify the body, and it's not functioning today, a lot of work around that. So preventing the accumulation of fats around the organ systems is another one, because of all the chronic inflammation that we have in our system right now, in our society, literally not only just preventing it, but reversing it. So getting rid of all that fat around the organ systems is a really big deal. The work around pain management, there's so much work around pain management right now, chronic pain. And this is the systemic inflammatory processes that are really, really hard to stop. You know, literally changing the perception of pain. So CBD getting into the system and changing the way our brain is perceiving pain. Such a big, big deal right now. Not only is it doing that, but it's shutting down, literally shutting down this chronic systemic inflammation that's happening in the body. Turning on all of the anti-inflammatory processes. So really going at pain management in a bunch of different ways. And again, a lot of the studies, the Spine Journal has a lot of really great studies in it for pain management. So let's look at mental health again. You know, there's so much work, alcoholism, opiate withdrawal. That's why it was so easy for me to get my mom off of so many different medications, because it's going in there. Not only does the medication work better, so she had to start taking less of it, but over time, her own systems were working better. The physiology in her body, enhancing the body's ability really to control all of these different pathways. A lot of work around depression, phobia, schizophrenia, PTSD. If you haven't seen the documentary Weed, really, really good one. Dr. Sanjay Gupta goes over that. A lot of the childhood disorders, the epilepsy, the ADD, ADHD. I mean, there's so much going on, you know, in mental health. Neurogenesis, so brain health in general. Neurogenesis, the regeneration of new nerve cells in the brain. Huge. They told us that can happen, and it's happening. And we can document that we can actually regenerate new nerve cells. And also brain plasticity. All that means is it's changing the pathways into the brain, changing the way we're perceiving things. A lot of work around Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. I mean, you can YouTube Parkinson's someday and CBD or cannabis, and you can see people online, you know, with the tremors, and immediate, like within, you know, a minute to 5 minutes, the tremors stop. Seizures, we talked about seizures, you can look that up. I like to put these in here. If you're kind of a dork like I am, or like a researcher, you can look at some of these articles yourself. All the stuff is out there on PubMed. I got this one out of the Free Radical Biology Medical Journal. There's another one out of the Pharmacological Biochemistry Behavior. You don't have to know that, but if you're somebody who likes to look at that stuff, that's a really great resources on all of the liver work that's happening. A lot of stuff here, neuroprotective. I mean, there's just so much stuff. This is out of Brazil, epilepsy, schizophrenia, cancer, inflammation. I mean, there's so much information out there. This is the one that they talk about, the gene transcription modulation, so changing the expression of the genes. This is one of the best articles I've ever read, literally talking about oxidative stress, cleaning up the body, reducing the inflammation, the chronic systemic inflammation that is so hard to stop in this society, and then changing the expression of the immune genes. Really, really big deal. This is a good one. British Journal of Pharmacology.
And just maybe mention it if people are live streaming or if they're in person and they want a list of maybe recommended videos or research stuff, we can email them.
Absolutely, yeah. Lots of good information out there. So real quickly, I just want you guys, I put this up here because that's a lot of information and it's a little bit brighter slide. But, and people on the phone, if you guys are on the phone out there, it's just a really bright wheel. And in the middle, you can see gastrointestinal, you can see mood and behavior, neurological, pain and sleep, and then other. And on the outside here, you see all of the disorders that are being studied right now and how all of these different cannabinoids are influencing that. And basically, my main point of this is to understand CBD is the modulator. It is conducting a major orchestra, but it has to have something to conduct. And what's the fear, especially in Western society, is that they're going to learn, as we're learning all of these benefits of CBD, we're going to start plucking that CBD out of the plant and using it alone. But really, CBD is working in synthesis with all of these other different systems and with our own bodies, all of our own hormones and neurotransmitters and all of that, all of the physiology that we have in our body. So we want to make sure that we're not just plucking CBD, that we're using entire plants, we're using entire extractions so that we can get that full synergistic effect in the body. This is a really good one out of chart out of SC Labs. So SC Labs is in Santa Cruz. They're testing a lot of the medical marijuana across the nation right now for content, but they're also doing a lot of work on their own. And you can see right here CBD and just all of the different things that it's influencing, but together with all the other ones as well. So we're looking at seizures, nausea, reducing blood sugar levels, bacterial growth, just on and on and on. I mean, definitely, I encourage you, if there's something particular that you're interested, to PubMed, Google, Project CBD is a really good resource, or holler at me and I'll give you some really good resources. I think content is really important. That's what we're talking about. Lita, do you want to chime in here for a moment?
Yeah, I can just say a couple things. I know I have some colleagues on the call. So, one of the most important things about any sort of plant medicine is what? You want it grown in the earth, underneath the sun. God bless us all. The cannabis industry, it's finally getting to be regulated a little bit with federal versus state, but a lot of people grow in their homes. They grow in their closets, under lights. I personally don't think it's ideal. I think the life force of the sun and the life force of the earth really contributes to the plant. As far as, this particular slide, you want to look at full spectrum of the, like I think Dr. Bean just mentioned, the cannabinoids. Don't want to just do CBD. You want to do all the ranges of CBD, at least 4 of them, I would say. And then the flavonoids and the terpenes and any other stuff that's in there, especially if there's essential oils in there. So I can't stress enough, at this point in our life, we are living in a different time. The food that we're eating is different. And there's just, there's a lot of unknowns. So I would say the best thing I could say just about this content matter slide would be non-organic. And I know these are kind of standard, but it's important to mention, no soy, no GMO, no corn, no heavy processing, of course, of course, fair trade if you can, but grown on soil that's been organic for a long time, because, if you have a farm, if you don't understand biodynamic farming, and with certain wind patterns, seedlings can go to different farms. And I know I'm being super picky, but as an herbalist, everything that you put in your body is a frequency. Every thought is a frequency, so I'm super picky on, vetting out products, especially this day and age. You almost need a PhD to read a supplement label.
Yeah.
Which is not okay. A lot of companies are doing profits for 4 people. So we're here to educate you on, of course, the endocannabinoid system, but also educate you at least basics in this class on how would you even go about, what are you going to look for if you were to think about trying CBD oil. So content matters. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's great. Thanks. I like it when she does that. as the herbalist, she's really good at explaining, why that's so important. So last thing I want to tell you about is, it makes sense to me that I've been doing this here presentation probably for at least 6 months now. About 3 months ago, this product dropped into my lap, and I'm super excited about it. I have been sending people to the dispensaries. I've been asking them to read read the labels to really understand what they're getting, because you don't really know what you're getting. And when I saw this particular product, I grabbed a hold of it tight and sent the first bottle to my mom because I believe in it that strongly. I think it's a really, really, really great CBD oil. So obviously non-GMO is super important. It has been organically farmed in Spain and Switzerland internationally for the past 50 years on organically farmed soil for the last 50 years. That's another really important part for me. The nano-liposomal technology, that's what sets it apart. So this is all about delivery system. It's about getting CBD into the body. So right now, when most CBD, because it's an oil extraction, it's either in some kind like olive oil or coconut oil or some other oil. What happens is even if you go sublingual with it, you go under the tongue, you're going to absorb maybe about 10%. You get anywhere from 6 to 10% absorbability. It goes down into the digestive system, goes through the liver. Once it gets to the blood, again, you've got about another 6 to 10% absorption. So overall, we're getting anywhere from about 12 to 16% absorption through oils. What happens with the nano-liposomal technology is because of the small, what nano means, it's a unit. It's small. It's a small unit. And that allows the oil to get in through the bloodstream a lot quicker, right? So it goes into the bloodstream. And what they're testing now, absorbability, about 97 to 100% absorption rate. So that's a big deal. The nanotechnology, if we're going from anywhere from 6 to 10% absorption to 97 to 100% absorption, just a really big deal to get that into the body. It has very low THC, low levels of THC, 0.02%, and it's a phytocannabidiol extract, right? So again, one of the things that makes it really absorbable is the stability. So the phosphatidylcholine here, the phospholipids. So they put the oil through the sieve here, like it's called like a filter, and the filter makes it, and they keep pushing it through the filter, and it goes into really small molecules, and then they stabilize it with a phospholipid. So the phospholipid is also what the cell membranes are made of, so it's helping cellular health as well. So it gets into the system. They're testing it within about 60 to 90 seconds, 97 to 100% absorption. So this is a dietary supplement. It's legal in all 50 states right now. Gosh, what else can I say? Do you want to add anything to that, Lisa?
Sure. Yeah. So I just want to add a couple things. I love Dr. Bean. You did great. Just want to add a couple things. So first of all, a lot of questions just around CBD. I mean, what are the benefits of CBD? I think you mentioned, Google it, get curious about the endocannabinoid system. Go to YouTube. Again, if you don't have your email, you want us to send some resources, just put your email in the chat box. We'll send you something. But, also people want to know, are there side effects? Are there side effects of CBD? Would this benefit me? So, if we step back a moment and look at, are we feeling awesome? Are we feeling great? Are we feeling, are we here doing our purpose, being our purpose? So that's the first thing, because when you're in sympathetic state, right? Sympathetic nervous state, you're in fight or flight, you're in survival mode. And from that place, you can't really thrive, and you can't really step into, who you're really meant to be here. And I'm seeing either people are physically not well or financially not well. A lot of stress on the system as far as our patient base in Santa Cruz. And hey, Santa Cruz is pretty nice, fresh, salty air, and they're still in fight or flight. So I want you to ask yourself first is, how am I doing? Is the CBD, is my system producing CBD enough with anandamide being released, the 2-AG being released, where I'm able to downregulate inflammation, and to really upregulate my antioxidants? I don't know if you mentioned the U.S. government having 2 patents on the benefits of CBD being a neuroprotectant and an antioxidant. Scary. But yeah, so what I would ask you is my system working? And if not, why? And then be curious on, gosh, what would my life be like? Or how would I feel if I could jumpstart and kickstart this system to operate in me? That's more of the question I want you to ask yourself. As far as side effects, contraindications of CBD, so there is CBD from cannabis, there's CBD from industrial hemp. The research saying, so first of all, we are talking about a very specific product, and a supplement is only as good as its absorption. So know that. Dr. Christopher Shade, we're going to go into some details about how to buy a wholesale or retail in a few minutes, but Dr. Christopher Shade is the master of absorption in the world. Okay, so this particular CBD oil is the #1 product on the planet, not just because it's grown in organic soil and it's non-GMO. It's because of and a lot of CBD is CO2 extracted, no herbicides, fungicides, pesticides. It's because of the technology. It's because of the nano-liposomal technology that it can get into the cell, parts of the receptors in the brain and the skin and the lymph and the thymus. It gets into the cell and does what it's meant to do. Okay, this is huge. So as far as CBD oil in general, I always say, okay, this is a dietary supplement approved in all 50 states, good for infants. As far as side effects, I haven't seen any. So if you were to Google side effects of CBD, I think if it comes from cannabis, there is a conflict with the P450 with the liver, and it's very short-lived, the side effect. But I would say, feel free to reach out to us if you have a specific case or specific questions. But as far as this particular product, it is approved for infants and all humans on the planet. And do I believe that everybody should be on this product? Yes. Why? Because I, as a plant, this plant is waking people up. This is plant intelligence. And it is really beautiful when this plant has changed and transformed our local community in Santa Cruz to see people getting physically and financially well. So we're just super excited that that we're embraced and showed that this is just dropped into our laps. Michelle and I, for some of you on the call that know us, we've been driving our patients, off the cuff to get medical marijuana cards the last couple of years. We've been studying. Michelle's been really geeking out on chemical trials, PubMed searches on Friday and Saturday nights on learning about this system. Chinese medicine, I'll just tell you one more thing. In Chinese medicine, we've been using cannabis sativa L for 2,700 years. It's in our textbooks. I'm presenting my doctorate in December. I'm hoping they approve this subject for it, and more on that later. So I would just say that the last thing I'll say about this particular product is that Dr. Christopher Shade put every single item very intentionally in this product. So I'll give you an example. A lot of CBD will have cinnamon or mint, and yes, you might want cinnamon and mint, but why did he put organic wild orange essential oil? I want you to Google LIMONE. Google that flavonoid, and you will understand why. So super important to understand that every item in this product is about absorption. And it's pretty phenomenal. 30 seconds, crosses the blood-brain barrier, starts to open up into the body, lasts 4 to 6 hours. Really amazing.
Yeah, that's the class. What I would say is, if you have any questions, if you're out there Zooming and you have any questions, you can use the chat. We're going to close this for a moment, and we're going to take a break here.
Like 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah, like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into how to buy retail or wholesale and the special offer that ends at 10 p.m.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So hang tight, Zoomers. If you have any questions, you can use the chat there. We'll answer your questions, and we're just going to mute you, and we're going to take a break.